isang galit na rhinoceros ang isang rider ng motorsiklo sa Nepal.
Ating alamin kung nakatakas ang motorista mula sa dambuhalang hayop mula sa mga detalye ng balitang ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi, ako po si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Virgila Go Flores, ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong Miyerkules ng gabi.
Drug convict na overseas Filipino worker sa Indonesia na si Jane Veloso makakauwi na sa Pilipinas.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin III kinumpirmang deployment ng U.S. Task Force sa Yumin.
Russia sinabing napabagsak nito ang mga US-made missiles ng Ukraine.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump sinamahan si Elon Musk na manood ng Starship test launch.
At ating saksihan ang formal na pagre-retiro ni Rafael Nadal sa paglalaro ng tennis.
This guy's relentless.
Matapos po ang mahigit isang dekada ay makakauwi na ng Pilipinas ang overseas Filipino worker na si Jane Veloso. Matatanda ang nakulong sa Indonesia si Veloso noong taong 2010 dahil sa kasong drug trafficking.
Nahatulan ng parusang kamatayan sa Indonesia si Veloso, ngunit nanindigan siya na siya ay inosente at biktima lamang ng human trafficking. Kinumpirma ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. na mapupunta na ang kustodiya ni Veloso sa Pilipinas. Kaugnay nito, sinabi rin ni Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Eduardo de Vega na pinag-uusapan na ang terms of transfer ni Veloso sa Pilipinas galing sa Indonesia. Kahit wala pang detalye kung kailan makakauwi ng Pilipinas si Veloso, ay nakahanda na ang Department of Justice o DOJ, National Bureau of Investigation at Department of Foreign Affairs sa pagsundo kay Veloso. Pinag-uusapan na rin kung saang facility ikukulong si Veloso, pero kinukonsidera ng DOJ ang Correctional Institute for Women o CIW sa Mandaluyong. Paliwanag ng DOJ, hawak pa rin ng Indonesian government ang legal custody ni Veloso kaya hindi pa tuluyang lalaya ito.
Perhaps in more technical terms, the legal custody would be Indonesia's because we are asked to respect their laws and jurisprudence, but the physical custody will be with the Philippines. Yes. However, the Indonesian government is aware that we do not have the death penalty here, which they respect as well, which was a consideration, obviously, when they also issued the policy of transferring certain detained individuals back to their home countries. They are aware that not all legal frameworks are the same. They are aware that we have no death penalty here, and yet they are still in, they have still agreed to looking into the transfer.
Muli naman pinagtiban ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ang kanyang suporta sa Ukraine habang patuloy ang digmaan nito kontra Russia na umabot na po sa 1,000 araw. Sa isang pahayag, inalala ng Pangulo ang naging pakikipagpulong nito kay Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noong June 3. Dito rin inulit ng Pangulo ang suporta ng Pilipinas para sa soberanya at territorial integrity. Sa isang parliament session, sinabi naman ni Zelensky na hindi ipagpapalit ng Ukraine ang soberanya nito at ni hindi bibitawan ang karapatan sa teritoryo ng Kiev.
Umabot na sa 9 katao ang nasawi sa pananalasa ng bagyong Nika, Ophel at Pepito, ayon po yan sa NDRRMC. Gayunpaman, patuloy ang verifikasyon ng ahensya sa mga ulat na nasawi sa kalamidad. 7 sa iniulat na nasawi ay isang pamilya na natabunan ng landslide sa Baguio, Nueva Vizcaya sa kasagsagan ng Super Typhoon Pepito. Isa naman ang napaulat na namatay sa Daet, Camarines Norte dahil din sa bagyong Pepito. Pero ayon sa Office of Civil Defense, vehicular accident ang ikinamatay nito at hindi dahil sa bagyo. 4 naman ang naitalang nawawala habang 16 na iba pa ang nasaktan sa bagyo. Higit sa 3 milyong katao o 829,000 families mula sa 34 na lalawigan ang apektado ng magkakasunod na bagyo.
Pumaro naman sa mahigit 10 bilyong piso ang pinsalang iniwan sa agriculture sector na magkasunod na bagyong tumama sa Pilipinas. Ayon po yan sa datos na nakalap ng Department of Agriculture o DA. Sinabi ni DA spokesperson Arnel de Mesa, malubhang napinsala ang rehiyon ng Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon at Bicol. Nagmistulang fish pond naman ang mga palayan sa Camaligan, Camarines Sur at Kasiguran, Aurora dahil sa baha. Malaki rin ang pinsala sa mga agricultural land sa Balatan, Camarines Sur at Bagao, Cagayan. Sa kasalukuyan ay humiling ang DA ng karagdagang 1 bilyong piso para makamit o magamit na ayuda sa mga apektadong magsasaka at mangingisda.
Dadaluhan ng Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo ang Group of 7 ministerial meetings sa Italy sa November 25 at 26. Inimbitahan ni Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani na dumalo sa pagtitipon si Manalo kung saan Italia ang nasa presidency seat ng G7 ngayong taon. Ayon sa DFA, inaasahang makikipagpalitan ng pananaw si Secretary Manalo hinggil sa regional security sa Indo-Pacific region. Kasama ng kalihimang foreign ministers ng Italy, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom at Estados Unidos. Makikipagpulong din si Manalo sa kanyang Italian counterpart sa sidelines ng G7 para pag-usapan ang bilateral cooperation ng Pilipinas at ng Italy.
Ibinunyag ni U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III na may mga Amerikanong sundalong nakadeploy para sa U.S. Task Force sa UNIN. Sa huling araw ng kanyang pagbisita sa Pilipinas, kinausap ni Austin ang mga Amerikanong miyembro ng U.S. Task Force sa UNIN upang pasalamatan ang kanilang kasipagan sa tungkulin bilang mga sundalo. Ayon sa ilang ulat, kadalasang lumilikha ng isang grupo ang militar ng Estados Unidos. Binubuoan nila ito ng isang maliit na section ng kanilang Army, Navy at Air Forces na naka-assign para sa isang misyon. Samantala, wala pang inilalabas na detalye tungkol sa nasabing task force ng Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP Chief General Romeo Browner Jr., AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, Western Command spokesperson Commander Kenneth Lozanes at Department of National Defense spokesperson Arsenio Andolong.
Ang pangalang Mary Grace Piatos ay madalas ngayong maririnig at mababasa ng publiko sa mga balita at mga social media sites. Handa nga ring magbigay ang Kamara ng 1 milyong pisong pabuya sa sino mang makapagbibigay ng impormasyon ukol sa pagkatao ni Mary Grace Piatos. Ang taong ito, ayon sa ilang miyembro ng Kamara, ay sangkot umano sa maling paggamit ng confidential funds ng Office of the Vice President o OVP. Ngunit nang tanungin ng press si Vice President Sara Duterte ukol sa isyung Mary Grace Piatos, ay tumanggi itong magbigay ng komento. Hindi rin ito kinumpirma kung totoong may informante ang OVP na nangangalang Mary Grace Piatos. Paliwanag ng Vice Presidente, hindi anya pa nakikita ang mga dokumento o acknowledgement receipt kung saan lumilitaw ang pangalan at pirma ni Piatos. Sinabi rin niya na hindi dumaan sa kanya ang mga liquidation documents dahil direkta itong sinumite kay OVP Special Disbursement Officer Gina Acosta at Inspection and Control of Fund Audit Unit of the Commission on Audit. Dagdag pa ni Vice President Sara, hindi niya alam kung paano naproseso ang mga nasabing dokumento at napunta sa Kamara.
Naaresto ang isang drug courier at nasabat ang estimated 2.2 million pesos na halaga ng iligal na droga sa isang operasyon sa Quezon City nitong Martes ng gabi. Kinilala ng Quezon City Police District ang suspect bilang si Lemuel Rosero na residente ng Pasay City. Nahuli siya sa isang buy-bus operation sa Commonwealth Avenue. Nagkunwari bilang buyer ang isang pulis at bumili ng shabu mula kay Rosero na kaagad na inaresto matapos ang transaksyon. Nakumpiska mula sa suspect ang 300 gramo ng hinihinalang shabu at 140 gramo pa ng high-grade marijuana na tinatawag na kush.
Inaasahang makatatanggap ang Pilipinas ng karagdagang unmanned surveillance platforms mula sa Estados Unidos sa ilalim ng Foreign Military Financing Program nito. Inanunsyo Inanunsyo ito ni U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin III sa isang joint press conference sa Western Command Headquarters sa Palawan na magiging parte ng 500 milyong grant para sa Pilipinas ang sinasabing aparato. Binigyan diin ni Austin ang kakayahan ng T-12 unmanned surface vessels na mag-integrate ng mga sensor para sa ibabaw at ilalim ng dagat. Kasama rito ang electro-optical cameras at sonar upang palawakin ang mga kayang gawin na mission nito. Pahayag ni Secretary Austin, layunin ng US na tiyakin na may sapat na kakayahan ng Pilipinas upang ipagtanggol ang soberanya at karapatan nito sa loob ng exclusive economic zone ng bansa.
Susunod, Russia pinabagsak ang US-made missiles ng Ukraine na pinalipad sa loob ng bansa.
Biden inaprubahan ang pagbigay ng anti-personnel landmines para sa Ukraine.
At Netanyahu nanindigan na hindi na mamumuno ang Hamas sa Gaza sa pagtatapos ng digmaan. Mga detalye ng mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Per fish. Yung volume possible na nasa mga 8,000 metric tons. Additionally,
are the wounded and killed
kanto yung matulong nagpapasalamat na ako dahil makakauwi na si Melvin. Masaya-masaya po kami ng pamilya. Hanggang sa mga anak na tonto ay mga anak na talagang hindi sila makapaniwala. Nabigla-biglaan na malalaman nila makakauwi na yung mama nila. Sa wakas, kayong bunso sa kayong panganay, may magulo na kami mag-aalaga sa amin. Dahil hindi rin nila nasubukan mo.
Ayon sa World Health Organization, lampas na sa safe limit ang level ng air pollution sa New Delhi, India. Ilan sa mga itinuturong dahilan ng matinding air pollution sa New Delhi ay ang paggamit ng mga paputok kapag susunog ng mga pananim at ang hindi magandang lagay ng panahon doon. Upang maiwasan ang mga pagkakasakit na dulot ng air pollution ay mas pinipili ng maraming negosyante na isara na lamang ang kanilang mga pwesto. Napapadalas na rin ang suspension ng mga klase sa eskwelahan. Reklamo nga ng mga residente sa New Delhi ay ang hirap ng huminga sa kanilang lungsod.
इतना परेशान है ये आँखों में जाना किसी ने मिर्च डाल दी ऐसे करके मिर्च लगती है आँखों में आगे मिचती है पानी चलता है आँखों में से सांस लेने में बहुत दिक्कत है तो दम घुट रहा है
और आगे से आने वाले सालों में बहुत ज़्यादा बुरा हाल दिल्ली का होने वाला है। इससे हमको ये पता चल रहा है कि यहाँ पर पहले से कोई इंतजाम नहीं किए जाते हैं। जब प्रदूषण बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाता है तब सरकार एक दूसरे के ऊपर दोषारोपण किया करती हैं।
Pinabagsak ng Russia ang pinakaulang US-made missile ng Ukraine. Ayon sa Russian Air Defense, kanilang napabagsak ang 5 missiles ng Ukraine habang isa ang matagumpay na tumama sa target nito. Nagdulot ng sunog sa mga military facilities ang mga nahulog na fragments ng missile, subalit kaagad naman itong naapula. Magugunit ang inaprubahan ni US President Joe Biden na gamitin na ng Ukraine ang ibinigay nilang supersonic ballistic missiles o ATACMS. Ang nasabing missiles ay kayang lumipad sa hanggang sa layong 300 kilometers habang karga ang hanggang sa 170 kilos na pampasabog.
Samantala, tiniyak ng Russia na gagawin ito ang lahat upang maiwasan ang isang nuclear war. Alamin natin ang report mula kay Mayfanway Zaragoza.
Sa Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, sinabi ni Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov na gagawin ng bansa ang lahat upang pigilan ang pagsabog ng nuclear war.
We are strongly in favor of doing everything not to allow nuclear war to happen. It was us who first, during the Soviet Union times, suggested to the United States, and President Gorbachev and President Reagan made a joint statement that nuclear war can never be won and never must be started.
Ani Lavrov, ang nuclear weapons ay nagsisilbing pananggalang sa gyerang nuklear.
The update of the military doctrine does not add anything which the West wouldn't know, and does not add anything which would be different, let me put it this way, from the American doctrinal documents on what to do with nuclear weapons. We are convinced that the nuclear weapon is first and foremost a weapon to constrain, to prevent any nuclear war.
Samantala, noong Martes, sa isang bagong policy document, binabaan ni Pangulong Vladimir Putin ang threshold o basihan ng paggamit ng nuclear weapons. Ito ay nang-ayon sa Moscow. Naglusad ang Ukraine ng US-made Army Tactical Missile System o ATACMS missiles papuntang Western Russia. Mayfanway Zaragoza para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nagpahiwatig naman ng mga opisyal ng Kremlin na bukas si Russian President Vladimir Putin na talakayin ang isang Ukrainian ceasefire deal kasama si US President-elect Donald Trump. Subalit, hindi papayag ang Moscow na ipamigay ang kanilang mga nasakop na teritoryo at hindi rin papayag sa pagsali ng Kiev sa North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO. Bagamat hindi papayag ang Russia sa malalaking concessions, posibleng magkaroon ng negosasyon para sa maliliit na bahagi ng mga rehiyon ng Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia at Kherson. Bukas din ang Russia na umatras sa maliliit na bahagi ng Kharkiv at Mykolaiv regions na hawak nila sa kasalukuyan. Gayunpaman, maaaring maantala ang anumang kasunduan dahil sa desisyon ni US President Joe Biden na payagan ng Ukraine na gumamit ng mga missiles laban sa Russia.
Sinabi ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky na makikipagtulungan ang Kiev sa mga kaalyado nito para sa longer-range strikes. Narito ang report ni Arnie Aquino.
Ibinida ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky na sa kasalukuyan may kapasidad na ang bansa para sa long-range attacks. Nagbabala rin ito na gagamitin ng Ukraine ang Army Tactical Missile System na tinanggap nito kamakailan.
Вибачте, без зайвих деталей. У України є далекобійні можливості, у України є далекобійні дрони свого власного виробництва. У нас тепер є довгий Нептун, і не один, і тепер у нас є Атакамс. І ми все це будемо використовувати.
Ngayong linggo, inaprubahan ng US ang paggamit ng Ukraine sa ATACMS missiles sa Russia. Dahil dito, noong Martes, binabaan ni Russian President Vladimir Putin ang military threshold nito para sa isang nuclear strike. Sinabi rin ni Zelensky na panahon na para sa Germany na suportahan ang longer-range strike capabilities ng Ukraine laban sa Russia. At ubili kasi si German Chancellor Olaf Scholz na magkaloob ng long-range Taurus cruise missiles sa Ukraine na ikinababagot naman ng Kiev. Ang komentong ito ni Zelensky ay matapos kumpirmahin ng isang opisyal ng Ukraine na ginamit ng Kiev military ang US-supplied system upang atakihin ang isang arsenal sa Bryansk region ng Russia noong Martes. Arnie Aquino para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Inaprubahan ni US President Joe Biden ang pamimigay ng anti-personnel landmines sa Ukraine upang pigilan ang pag-usad ng Russian troops sa front lines. Ang mga anti-personnel mines na ito ay hindi permanente at hindi rin sasabog kapag naubos na ang baterya. Nagiging inactive rin ang mga landmines na ito sa loob ng 4 na oras hanggang 2 linggo. Nangako naman ang gobyerno ng Ukraine na hindi ito maglalagay ng mga landmines sa mga lugar na matao.
Inamin ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky na matatalo ang Ukraine sa pagkikidigma nito sa Russia. Ito ay kung ititigil na ng Estados Unidos ang pagsuporta nito sa Ukraine. Sinabi ni Zelensky na kahit hindi natulungan ng Washington ang Kiev, ay patuloy pa ring makikipaglaban ang kanyang bansa laban sa Russia. Mayroon anya silang sariling weapon production, yun nga lang, hindi ito sapat upang matalo nila ang Moscow. Ayon sa ilang political analysts, nangangamba si Zelensky na wala ng pondong ilalabas ang Estados Unidos para sa military aid nito sa Ukraine sa oras na umupo na sa White House si President-elect Donald Trump.
Sugatan ng 4 na miyembro ng United Nations Peacekeeping Agency na nakatalaga sa Southern Lebanon.
Since the hostilities started last year, UNIFIL has also suffered numerous hits on its assets and personnel, a total of 162 impacts with more than 1/3 in less than 2 months. More than 20 peacekeepers have been injured so far. Fortunately, none of them has life-threatening conditions.
Nangyari ito matapos tamaan ng rocket ang base nila na isa sa 3 insidente ng pag-atake ng IDF sa loob ng iisang araw. Kasalukuyang nasa pagamutan ng 4 na Ghanaian peacekeepers. Dahil sa naturang pangyayari ay minabuti na ng Argentina na paatrasin ang kanilang puwersa sa bahagi ng UNIFIL. Sa ngayon ay maliit lamang ang bilang ng Argentinian nationals na nakadestino sa Lebanon, subalit nag-aalala ang United Nations na magsisimula ito ng sunod-sunod na pagpapauwi ng ibang bansa ng kanilang puwersa mula sa ahensya. Ayon sa UN Interim Force in Lebanon o UNIFIL, nangyari ang insidente sa Ramya Village malapit sa border ng Israel. Kasama rin sa nasira ang base nila sa Shama, subalit walang naitalang nasugatan.
Argentina has asked their officers to go back. There are 3 Argentinian officers in UNIFIL, so our capabilities, operational capabilities have not changed. All the other contingents, all the other troop contributing countries have shown their commitment to stay, especially after we were asked a month ago by the IDF to move from our positions close to the blue line. Was a unanimous decision from everyone to remain, to stay. So we are still there in all our 50 positions in a very difficult situation.
Nanindigan si Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu na hindi na mamumuno ang Hamas sa Gaza kapag tuluyan ng natapos ang giyera.
אני נמצא כאן בחוף הים של עזה עם שר הביטחון, הרמטכ"ל, ראש השב"כ, עם מפקדינו וחיילינו הגיבורים שעושים כאן עבודה נפלאה פה במרכז הרצועה, בכל חלקי הרצועה. הם השיגו תוצאות מצוינות ביעד החשוב שלנו. החמאס לא ישלוט בעזה. אנחנו מחסלים את היכולות הצבאיות שלו בצורה מרשימה מאוד. אנחנו עוברים ליכולות השלטוניות שלו, ועוד היד נטויה, החמאס לא יהיה בעזה.
Sinabi ni Netanyahu na ginagawa nila ang lahat ng paraan para sirain ang military capabilities ng nasabing Palestinian groups. Dagdag pa niya, hindi sila tumitigil para matukoy ang ginaroroonan ng mga bihag ng Hamas. Binalaan din ito na ang sino mang magtatangkang sakta ng mga bihag ay kanilang aarestuhin. Una rito ay binabati ko si Netanyahu ng mga kaanak ng bihag dahil sa pagtutol sa ceasefire deal.
אנחנו גם עושים מאמץ מהמקום הזה בכל מקום לאתר את חטופינו ולהשיב אותם. אנחנו לא מרפים מזה ואנחנו נמשיך לעשות את זה עד שנשיג את כולם. החיים והחללים גם יחד. ואני רוצה לומר לאלה שמחזיקים את החטופים שלנו, מי שיעז לפגוע בחטופינו, דמו בראשו. אנחנו נרדוף אתכם, אנחנו נשיג אתכם.
Inihayag ni U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller na ang kasunduan sa pagitan ng Israel at Hezbollah ay malapit nang matupad. NJ de Guzman para sa report.
Kamakailan nakipagpulong si White House Envoy Amos Hochstein kay Parliament Speaker Nabi Berry sa Beirut. Ito ay isang araw matapos sumang-ayon ang Lebanese government at ang Iran-backed Hezbollah sa isang US ceasefire proposal. Ito ay sa kabila ng ilang komento nila sa nilalaman ng mungkahe. Ayon sa tagapagsalita ng State Department na si Matthew Miller, abot kamay na ang kasunduan.
So you might have seen that the President's Special Envoy Amos Hochstein was in Beirut today, meeting with the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament. He gave a press statement after that where he made clear that we have made significant progress and that an agreement is within reach, but it's going to take decisions by both parties, by both Israel and Lebanon, to actually get an agreement, and that's what we're going to continue to push for.
Subalit nilinaw ni Miller na marami pang dapat gawin sa kabila ng progresong ito. Kailangan anyang sumang-ayon ng kapwa-partido sa lahat ng kondisyon, isang bagay na hindi pa mabibigyan ng tiyak na petsa.
Obviously, when we come out and give you an assessment about where negotiations stand, it's based on our conversations with the parties. And so he can make the kind of statement he made. I can make the kind of statement I made yesterday when I noted that we had made progress because we are in conversation with the parties and we can see that we have overcome some of the obstacles to getting a resolution. But there's more to be done. We need an agreement from the parties, but we are working to accomplish that. We want to get one done as soon as possible.
Can you put a timeline at all?
No.
Ang misyong ito ni Hochstein ay isang huling hirit ng outgoing U.S. administration na ipamagitan ang isang ceasefire sa Lebanon. Ang aksyong diplomatikong ito ay kasabay ng mas umiinit na pag-atake ng Israel sa southern suburbs ng Beirut na kontrolado ng Hezbollah. 3 beses na rin inatake ng Israel ang kabisera sa nakaraang 3 araw. NJ de Guzman, para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Sinabi naman ng hepe ng UNRWA na ang tanging alternatibo para sa trabaho ng UN Palestinian Agency sa Gaza ay pabayaan ng Israel na magpatakbo ng serbisyo roon. Muling nanawagan ang Commissioner General ng UNRWA na si Philippe Lazzarini sa mga bansang tutulan ang Israel ban sa organisasyon. Sinabi nitong kung babawalan ang UNRWA na magserbisyo sa Israel, ang tanging makapagtutuloy ng trabaho nito ay ang Israel mismo. Si Lazzarini ay nasa Geneva para sa isang strategy meeting kasama ang donors ng ahensya matapos itong harangan ng Israel na magpatuloy sa operasyon sa Gaza noong 1 buwan.
There is no plan B within the UN agency, within the UN family, because there is no other agency geared to provide the same activities. And in reality, UNRWA is the response of the international community to the plight of the Palestinian refugees through the mandate provided by the GA resolution. So if there is no UN or international community response, the responsibility will go back to the occupying power, being Israel. And that's where we have to ask, where does the plan B sit today?
Ani Lazzarini, ito ay isa sa pinakamadidilim na panahon para sa ahensya. Halos 100 truck na may dalang pagkain para sa Palestinians ang marahas na ninakawan noong 16 ng Nobyembre matapos itong makapasok sa Gaza. Ang pangyayaring ito ay isa sa pinakamalalang kawalan ng tulong sa loob ng 13 buwang labanan sa Gaza kung saan tumitindi ang taggutom. Bit-bit ng convoy ang pagkain mula sa mga ahensyang UNRWA at World Food Program ng United Nations. 78 truck na 109 truck convoy ang ni-raid.
More than 100 trucks have been looted, primarily UNRWA and the WFP. basically 80-90% of the convoy on that day. What does it show? Well, we have been warning a long time ago about the total breakdown of civil order. Until 4 or 5 months ago, we still had local capacity people who were escorting the convoy. This has completely gone, which means we are in an environment where local gangs, local families are struggling among each other to take control of any business or any activities taking place in the south.
Ani Lazzarini, tila imposible na ang gumawa sa lugar.
It has become an impossible environment to operate. Related to this incident, we had also hundreds of people who tried to storm into the Rhinoceros vocational center because they thought that the food arrived there, and people were so desperate to have the food that they stormed into the vocational training center. But the convoys were looted, so there was absolutely nothing to take from the warehouses in Rhinoceros.
Nangangamba si Lazzarini na kung hindi mapipigilan ang batas na ito ng Israel na harangan ang UNRWA, maaaring pamarisan ito sa may 50 labanan na nagaganap ngayon sa buong mundo. Anya, ito ay pagpapahina ng international humanitarian law ay ng mga instrumento sa mundong multilateral. Naniniwala naman si German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius na sinabotahe ang dalawa nilang undersea cable sa Baltic Sea.
Ein ganz klares Zeichen, dass hier etwas im Gange ist. Niemand glaubt, dass diese Kabel aus Versehen durchtrennt worden sind. Und ich mag auch nicht an Versionen glauben, dass das Anker waren, die zufällig über diesen Kabeln, Schaden angerichtet haben. Von daher müssen wir konstatieren, ohne konkret zu wissen, von wem es kommt, dass es sich um eine hybride Aktion handelt. Und wir müssen auch davon ausgehen, ohne es schon zu wissen, versteht sich, dass es sich um Sabotage handelt.
Ito ang inihayag ni Pistorius matapos masira ang nasa 1,170 kilometrong haba na telecommunications cable sa pagitan ng Finland at Germany. Napinsala at hindi na rin gumagana ang 218 kilometers na internet link sa pagitan ng Lithuania at Gotland Island sa Sweden. Nagkaroon ng serye ng pagkasira ng mga pipelines sa Baltic Sea mula nang magsimula ang labanan ng Russia at Ukraine. Nangangamba ang Germany at Finland dahil maaaring magsapanganib ang sa seguridad ng Europa ang patuloy na kaguluhan sa pagitan ng Russia at Ukraine. Bagamat wala pang resulta ang isinasagawang investigasyon ng Germany, naniniwala naman ang defense chief nito na responsable ang Russia sa pagkasira ng importanteng infrastrukturang ito.
I think it was not that effective as all of us would have hoped, because Putin reacted more or less at once in between 48 hours with his severe attacks on Ukraine infrastructure. But still, it is important to talk whenever it is possible to talk. And this phone call gave the proof, gave the evidence that Putin is not willing to negotiate about anything. So everybody in Germany or in other countries in Europe should realize finally now that this is not the point for talking about peace, because everybody of us wants peace, of course, but Putin does not want it. So, and any phone call who give a proof to that is a good phone call, and this is what happened.
Formal lang kikilalanin ng Estados Unidos si Edmundo Gonzales bilang lehitimong President-elect ng Venezuela. Inanunsyo ito ni U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sa isang social media post nitong Martes na muling nagbigay duda sa mga pahayag ni Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro na siya ang nanalo sa halalan. Hanggang ngayon, patuloy na tinatanggihan ng administrasyon ni Maduro ang panawagan ng international community na ilabas ang datos ng naganap na halalan na magpapatunay kung sino ang tunay na nagwagi noong eleksyon. Ngunit hindi pa malinaw kung ano ang magiging epekto ng pagkilala ng Estados Unidos kay Gonzales sa politika ng Venezuela at ng South America. Sunod, Indonesia ay pinagbawal ang pagbebenta ng Google Pixel phones.
Trump nanood ng 6th Starship test launch ng SpaceX.
At Lisa ng Blackpink maglalabas ng debut solo album. Mga balita pong yan sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Mula sa NET25 News, ako po si Alex Santos.
At ako naman po si Ali Soto.
Matatag, matapang at matapat na balitaan.
Yan ang aming ihahatid Lunes hanggang Biyernes.
Alas 6 hanggang alas 7:30 ng gabi. Mata ng Agila Primetime dito sa NET25.
Let's net together. Sa NET25. Sa NET25.
Nagtipon sa Brazil ang iba't ibang world leaders para sa ika-19 na G20 Summit na naglalayong makabuo ng mga leaders ng mga bansa ng paraan para solusyonan ang mga problema sa mundo. Nitong Lunes ay umarangkada ang naturang summit sa Brazil na nilahukan ng 20 major economies. Pinangunahan ni Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula ang pagsisimula ng pagtitipon. Dinaluhan ng mga world leaders ang unang sesyon na may temang Combating Hunger and Poverty. Tinalakay po sa sesyon ang inisyatibang tinawag na Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty na layuning magpundar ng mga resources at kaalaman para makabuo ng public policies.
Aos que estão aqui, compete aos que estão de volta desta mesa a inadiável tarefa de acabar com essa chaga que envergonha a humanidade. Por isso, colocamos como objetivo central da presidência brasileira no G20 o lançamento de uma aliança global contra a fome e a pobreza. Este será o nosso maior legado. A aliança nasce no G20, mas seu destino é global. Que esta cúpula seja marcada pela coragem de agir. Por isso, quero declarar oficialmente lançada a Aliança Global contra a Fome e a Pobreza.
Suportado ng nasa 81 bansa ang paglunsad ng Global Alliance na naglalayong pakiharapan ang kahirapan at kagutuman. Sa pangalawang sesyon naman ay tinalakay ang usapin hinggil sa reform of global governance institutions. Dito ay tinalakay na dapat magkaroon ng modernisasyon sa mga leading international bodies katulad ng United Nations at World Trade Organization. Pinag-usapan din po ang evolution ng mga international financial systems, partikular na ang mga development banks. Bahagi rin ng talakayan sa G20 Summit ang ukol sa sustainable development at energy transition, isang responsibilidad na dapat matugunan para mabawasan ang epekto ng climate change. Muli namang pinagtibay ng European Union ang kanilang commitment sa mas komprehensibo at epektibong implementasyon ng 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development at 17 Sustainable Development Goals o SDGs nito. Kilala po ang EU at ang member states nito bilang largest contributor sa climate finance sa buong mundo. Taong 2023, ang EU at ang 27 member states nito ay nakapag-ambag ng 28.6 billion euros sa climate finance. Ayon sa United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, ang climate finance ay tumutukoy sa pananalaping ginagamit na sa lokal, national o transnational level man bilang alternatibong pagkukunan ng pondo para magamit sa mga aktibidad na makakapag-address sa usapin ng climate change. Sa closing session ng G20 Summit, nangako si US President Joe Biden na $4 bilyong sa World Bank para pondohan ang mga mahihirap na bansa. Tinawag po ito ng White House na isang hakbangin ni Biden para kanyang ipagpatuloy ang legacy of leadership na bilang Pangulo ng United Nations or United States. Naging target din ng G20 na patawan ng malaking global tax ang mga bilyonaryo. Paliwanag ni Brazilian President Lula, target ng grupong patawan ng buwis ang humigit kumulang 3,000 mayayamang individual sa mundo. Giit ng Brazilian President, ang pagpapataw ng global tax sa mga mayayaman ay isang paraan para mabalanse ang katayuan ng mga mahihirap sa mga ito. Subalit, tumutol po ang bansang Argentina sa panawagang global tax at dapat umanong pag-aralan pa ito sa maraming aspeto. Higit sa hidwaan sa gitnang silangan ay naging mainit din ang usapin sa digmaan sa Ukraine. Nagkaroon kasi ng blame game sa pagitan ng US at Russia kung saan sinisisi ng Moscow ang Washington. Pinipilit umano nitong gamitin ang kanilang nuclear arsenal laban sa Kiev. Magugulitang pinayagan ni Biden ang Ukraine na gamitin ang mga missiles ng US para patamaan ng Russia bilang sagot sa pagsama ng mga North Korean soldiers sa pakikipaglaban nito kontra Ukraine. Idineklara naman ni Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov na nasa bingit na ng direct military conflict ang US at Russia dahil sa ginawang hakbang ni Biden. Mula sa sidelines ng G20 Summit ay hinikayat naman ni French President Emmanuel Macron si Chinese President Xi Jinping na gamitin ang kanyang impluwensya kay Russian President Vladimir Putin na hikayatin itong kumilos na matino sa issue. Nagpulong din ang China at Brazil sa sidelines para pag-usapan ang planong maitaguyod muli ang negosasyon sa pagitan ng Russia at ng Ukraine. Natapos ang G20 sa isang joint declaration na solusyonan ang problema ng Global South at maisulong ang poverty reduction at maitaguyod ang isang sustainable planet kahit na kasalukuyang humaharap ang mundo sa major geopolitical, socio-economic at climate and environmental challenges and crises. Ipinasa naman ng Brazil sa South Africa ang presidency ng grupo para paghandaan ang susunod na summit sa taong 2025. Sa huli po, isang panibagong panawagan ng mga world leaders ang muling nabuo mula sa katatapos na G20 Summit, isang mabigat na responsibilidad na dapat maipatupad para makamit ang inaasam na solusyon sa mga problemang kinakaharap ng lahat ng mga bansa. Ay nako, huwag naman po sanang hanggang puro usap at hanggang pangako na lamang ang mga inilatag sa hakbangin ng G20 dahil bahagi sila ng grupo ng major economies at malaki ang kanilang magagawa para mapahupa ang lumulubhang kahirapan at kagutuman sa mundo. Nawa po ay maging maayos ang pag-iisip ng mga pinuno ng mga bansa para magkaisa sila para mawakasan na rin ang kabi-kabilang mga gyera mula sa gitnang silangan at sa Ukraine at iba pang panig ng mundo.
Sa ibang balita, naiwan sa ere ang nasa 22 tao. Ito ay matapos huminto ng sasakyan nilang Soul Spin Ride sa California. Ayon sa mga otoridad ay dakong 2:00 ng hapon ang magkaproblema sa makinang sasakyan na tumagal ng 2 oras. Mapapanood naman sa isang video ang lagay ng mga pasahero habang nakalambitin sa ere ang kanilang mga paa. Kasunod nito ay isinagawa ang ride manufacturer and knots emergency procedure para sa ligtas na pagbababa sa mga pasahero. Matapos nito ay agad na dinala sa ospital ang dalawang babae na ngayon ay sumasailalim sa pagsusuri. Samantala, ayon sa website ng theme park ay isa ang Soul Spin ride sa pinaka-nakakatakot na rides mula sa three-way rotation nito sa magkakaibang direksyon.
Sa iba pang mga balita, hindi na nakalabas ng buhay ang isang 20 anyos na babae mula sa nasusunog na gusali sa Bengaluru, India. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nakatakas mula sa electric vehicle showroom ang 5 empleyado ng store nang sumiklab ang sunog. Subalit naiwan sa loob ang sales executive nito na kinilalang si Nasi Priya. Sa naging resulta ng investigasyon ng pulisya, short circuit sa isang electric scooter na nakadisplay sa silid ang naging sanhi ng sunog sa gusali. Nadamay sa sunog ang 45 electric scooters na ibebenta pa sana. Nag-deploy ng 3 fire trucks ang Bengaluru City Fire Department para apulahin ang apoy. Pansamantala namang isinara ang Dr. Rajkumar Road para sa clearing efforts. Pinilikas na rin ang Bengaluru City Traffic Police ang mga residente at shop owners malapit sa lugar para sa kanilang kaligtasan.
Samantala, mabilis ang pagkaripas ng takbo ng isang motorista sa Nepal matapos sugurin ng nag-aamok na dambuhalang rhinoceros sa daan. Kita sa video na iniwan ng rider ang kanyang motorsiklo para iligtas ang sarili mula sa hayop. Nagtangka kasi ang rhino na suwagin ng rider pero nakatakas naman ito. Mapapansin din na agad na nagtago ang kumukuha ng video sa likod ng isang puno. Makalipas ang ilang segundo ay umalis na ang rhino. Binalaan naman ng local authorities sa lugar ang mga residente na huwag munang lumabas ng kanilang mga tahanan para hindi atakihin ng nagwawalang hayop. Ipinagbabawal na po ngayon ng Indonesia ang pagbebenta ng Google Pixel smartphones sa kanilang bansa. Batay sa pamantayan na inilabas ng gobyerno ay kinakailangan na lahat ng binebentang smartphone sa Indonesia ay may porsyento ng paggawa sa kanilang bansa. Dagdag pa nila kung hindi ito masunod ay dapat magbigay ng makabuluhang investment ang manufacturer sa local economy. Giit ng tagapagsalita ng Industry Ministry na si Febri Henry Antony Arief, ito ay bahagi ng aksyon nila sa pagbibigay ng pantay na karapatan para sa lahat ng investors ng Indonesia. Anya, maaaring bumili ng Google Pixel smartphone sa ibang bansa, ngunit kailangang magbayad ng karampatang buwis para dito. Babala naman ng mga otoridad ay madi-deactivate ang mga smartphones na binili ng illegal mula sa ibang bansa.
Magkasamang sinubaybayan ni US President-elect Donald Trump at SpaceX CEO Elon Musk ang pang-anim na test launch ng Starship rocket sa Texas. Naging matagumpay ang paglulunsad ng Starship rocket mula sa launching sequence at separation sequence ng Super Heavy rocket booster. Bandang 6:05 p.m. ay kinumpirma ng command control ng SpaceX ang splashdown ng Starship rocket sa Indian Ocean. Ikinatuwa naman ni Musk ang pagdalo ni Trump sa test launch ng Starship. Itinuturing niya itong isang karangalan. Matapos obserbahan ang paglunsad sa Starship ay sinamahan din ni Musk si Trump sa loob ng Star Factory courtyard para sa isang tour.
Nabigo si Spanish tennis star Rafael Nadal sa huling professional tournament nito sa Davis Cup.
Percibido también, sinceramente me voy de este mundo del tenis profesional habiendo dejado muchísimos, habiendo encontrado muchísimos amigos en el camino, ¿no? Tengo tanta gente a la que agradecería y que he pasado por torneos, gente que ha trabajado conmigo en la ATP. Es difícil acordarme de todos, pero realmente creo que me voy con la tranquilidad de de alguna manera he dejado un legado como realmente lo siento así, no solo deportivo, también personal, porque entiendo que el cariño que recibo alrededor del mundo, si fuera solo por lo que hago dentro de la pista, no sería el mismo. O sea que de verdad que muchísimas gracias por todo.
Tinalo siya ni Botic van de Zandschulp ng the Netherlands sa score na 6-4, 6-4. Ito lamang ang kanyang pang-24 na larong nilahukan ng 22-time Grand Slam champion mula nang magsimula ang 2023 matapos ang halos isang taon na pamamahinga dahil sa hip injury. Sinamantala ni Van de Zandschulp ang double fault at double unforced errors ni Nadal. Kailangan na lamang manalo si Carlos Alcaraz para mabuhay ang tsansa ng Spain sa torneo. 8 bansa ngayon na naglalaban-laban kasi sa Davis Cup sa Malaga, Spain at ang finals ay gaganapin sa araw ng Linggo.
From a small village in Mallorca that I had the luck that I had my uncle that was a tennis coach in my village when I was a very, very small kid, and I had a great family that had the chance to support me in every single moment. No? Just a kid that follow their dreams, worked as hard as possible to be where I am today. And at the end of the day, being honest, a lot of people work hard, a lot of people tries their best every single day, but I am one of these that I have been very lucky that the life gave me the opportunity to live unforgettable experiences because of tennis. No? So I just want to be remembered as a good person and a kid that follow their dreams and achieved more than what I ever dreamed.
Ang 38 anyos na si Nadal ay nag-anunsyo na siya ay magre-retiro sa pagtatapos ng Davis Cup. Bagamat wala pang formal na inaanunsyo si Nadal ukol sa kinabukasan niya sa larangan ng tennis, ay maraming naniniwala na siya ay susunod sa yapak ng kanyang longtime coach na si Tony Nadal bilang isang coach and trainer para sa Rafael Nadal Academy.
And here is 16-year-old phenom Rafael Nadal waiting for the first serve. Is he going to play every point like that?
My goodness, you will be missed.
Muchísimas felicidades.
Un fuerte abrazo, amigo.
Thanks for everything, Rafa. Enjoy retirement, mate.
Love you and we'll miss you very much.
Enjoy the moment. Take care, Rafa.
Un abrazo enorme y gracias por todo, Rafa.
Un abrazo muy grande y muchas gracias por todo.
Thank you very much and good luck, my friend.
And get ready, Blinks! Yan ay dahil nakatakdang ilabas ang miyembro ng Blackpink na si Lisa ang kanyang debut solo album na Alter Ego. Makikita sa website ni Lisa ang cryptic timer kasama na ang title ng bagong album na Alter Ego na nakatakdang ilabas sa February 2025. Dagdag pa rito ang cover art kung saan tampok ang kanyang litrato habang nakasuot ng hood at spiky black nails. Mapapanood naman sa kanyang Loud YouTube channel ang 3-minutong thriller video ng Alter Ego. Bida rito ang pagbabago ng kulay ng kanyang mata at eksena ng Black Rock, Cyberpunk, Enchanted Garden at Green Laser Beam Motorcycle. Samantala, matatandaan ngayong taon ay inilabas sa Lisa ang kanyang rockstar New Woman at Mullet Floor, Kiss Me.
Inilabas po ngayon ng superstar na si Cher ang unang bahagi ng kanyang personal na buhay mula sa intimate memoir. Nakapaloob sa memoir ang buhay ni Cher bilang bata kung saan ay madalas siyang iwan ng kanyang ina na nagtatrabaho. Dagdag pa rito ang dahilan ng paglipat niya sa New York at California maging ang hindi maayos na relasyon nila ni Sonny Bono. Paliwanag ni Cher ay hindi naging madali para sa kanya na isulat ang kwento ng kanyang buhay mula sa matinding emosyon na dala nito. Nakatakda namang ilabas ang ikalawang volume ng memoir sa susunod na taon kung saan ay tinawag niya ang kanyang sarili na last-minute kind of person. Samantala, kinikilala si Cher bilang kauna-unahang babae na nanguna sa Billboard charts sa mga pitong magkakasunod na dekada.
Sa iba pa mga balita, naibenta ngayon sa halagang $59 milyong ang Monet painting na Nymphaea. Isinagawa ang auction sa New York mula sa 2 gabi na may temang modern art mula sa iba't ibang koleksyon. Tumagal ang bentahan sa Monet painting ng 17 minuto na may unang presyo na $40 milyong bago pa ito umakyat sa higit sa $50 milyong. Kabilang ang Nymphaea sa koleksyon ng late beauty industry entrepreneur na si Sidel Miller. Hango naman ang inspirasyon ng painting mula sa water garden ni Monet na kanyang ginawa sa Normandy. Samantala, tumagal sa pagpipinta si Monet sa Nymphaea ng 3 dekada mula noong 1890 hanggang noong 1926.
Pasok naman ngayon sa listahan ng UNESCO National Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage ang isang pottery workshop sa Greek island. Matatagpuan ang workshop sa tabing dagat sa bahagi ng Greek islands of Lesbos na pagmamay-ari ng isang pamilya. Ginagamit pa rin ng may-ari na si Dimitris Kouftis ang mga tradisyonal na pamamaraan sa pagbuo ng palayok. Paliwanag ni Kouftis ay mahalaga na mapanatiling tradisyonal na pamamaraan mula sa umuusbong na paggamit ng mga makina. Itinuturing naman na isa sa pinakahuling Mediterranean ito mula sa paggamit ng local soil at traditional kiln bilang olive pits. Siyempre, yung mga preservation na ganyan, importante. Kasi pamoderno na ng pamoderno yung panahon.
Yes. Talaga, and in this modern times din, di ba? Tsaka this changing times. Kaya nga, talagang marami nag-aabang dyan sa G20 Summit, di ba? Because talaga, we have to take care of Mother Earth. Hindi naman naka-Mother Earth.
Di ba? Ganda nga eh. Priority talaga dapat yan.
Tingnan naman natin ang mga dalang balita naman. Ni Miss Alma Angeles, dahil narito na po siya. Subalit tandaan, narito kami naman ni Nina mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes para maghatid ng balita sa amang dako ng mundo. Muli, ako po si Ricky Matay.
At ako po si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta naman po tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Elon Musk's influence continues to soar as former U.S. President Donald Trump joins him for the much-anticipated launch of SpaceX mega rocket. The U.S. Embassy in Kiev has issued a warning of a potential major air attack and will temporarily close. And this comes just a day after Ukraine struck Russian territory using U.S.-supplied ATACMS missiles, marking the 1,000th day of the war. And thousands of Filipinos migrating to Japan in search of greener pastures face the heartache of being far from their families. To help ease their burdens, members of the Church of Christ held a simultaneous Care for Humanity program providing much-needed support to fellow Filipinos abroad.
brimming with joy, are zealously gathered once again to facilitate the Care for Humanity event as they continue to fulfill their relentless commitment and carries on with this humanitarian effort.
And the news starts now. As the war in Ukraine enters its 1,000th day, the stakes are higher than ever. Tens of thousands of lives have been lost and the financial toll has reached billions. For the U.S., the conflict has been an expensive endeavor, with billions poured into supporting Ukraine's defense against Russia. And President-elect Donald Trump is back and said he wants the war to stop. In a potentially game-changing move, President Joe Biden has given the green light for Ukraine to conduct long-range missile strikes deep into Russian territory. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has hinted at this development.
1,000 days, I think it's enough to understand that Putin doesn't want any peace. Even this day, this is the fact, not some such words or something like this, not rhetoric. I mean, even this day, they killed our civilians. Even especially this day, they presented nuclear weapons strategy. Why? They didn't present peace strategy. Did you hear it? Did you read about it? No, of course. Of course, nuclear weapons strategy. Because he wants just to make chaos in the world. He wants to destroy Ukraine not only, and some other countries of NATO, and etc. I don't want to go deeply further to this. I don't want to repeat very simple things. Putin wants war.
Russia, in response, has issued stern warnings, updating its nuclear doctrine to broaden the scope for potential nuclear retaliation if it perceives its sovereignty or territorial integrity as critically threatened.
Aggression against the Russian Federation by any non-nuclear weapon state with the participation or support of a nuclear weapon state is considered a joint attack. Russia has always viewed nuclear weapons as a means of deterrence, the use of which is an extreme and forced measure. Russia has always taken a responsible position and made the necessary efforts to reduce the nuclear threat and prevent the exacerbation of international relations.
Coinciding with 1,000 days of Russia war against Ukraine has something of symbolic. It is not the first time that they threaten with nuclear escalation, which is completely irresponsible. Russia has subscribed to the principle that a nuclear war cannot be won and so must never be fought. And any call for nuclear warfare is an irresponsibility. We have to call it the way it is. It is not the first time that Putin plays the nuclear game ball.
Donald Trump Jr. has weighed in on the situation, taking to social media to criticize the escalating conflict. In a post, he stated, and I quote, "The military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III going before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives." For Ukraine, the next 2 months are critical. They have until January 20 to achieve as much as possible in this phase of war before facing the uncertainty of future U.S. involvement. Meanwhile, Europe is preparing to bolster its defense industry in case the U.S. reduces its support, while NATO and the EU work together to sustain Ukraine's military effort.
We have to ramp up the defense industry, and luckily NATO and the EU are working closely together to make sure that the defense industrial base, transatlantic, will be strengthened over the coming months. We really have to do this, to replenish our stockpiles, to make sure that we stand ready to oppose any adversary.
The West strategy seems to hinge on economic pressure, hoping to weaken Russia from within by making the war too costly to sustain. While Russia's economy showed resilience in the past year, inflation, rising food costs, and a growing cost of living crisis are starting to take a toll. Reports suggest that basic necessities like butter and meat have become significantly more expensive.
Особенно вот масло повысилось, кое-какие фрукты, овощи, очень дорогая картошка. капуста дорогая. Ну, это такие ходовые товары. Но зато вот я сегодня купила огурцы, очень дешевые, за 45 рублей килограмм. И гречку, 32 рубля 800 грамм.
Насчет индийских вопросик, потому что там, в принципе, нет так масла хорошего. Поэтому индийское я бы не стала брать. Я, когда покупаю именно молочку, но я только покупаю масло, я использую только, выбираю только масла российского производства.
But whether this will lead to a full-blown economic crisis in Russia remains uncertain. As tensions mount, the final 2 months of the year may shape the war's outcome. Ukraine faces the daunting challenge of maximizing its efforts before Trump's return to power, and Europe is scrambling to secure continued support for Ukraine. And Russia's economic and military endurance will be tested. With nuclear threats on the table, the world watches closely, hoping for peace, but bracing for what comes next. In a move aimed at slowing Russian advances in eastern Ukraine, President Joe Biden has now approved sending anti-personnel and land mines to Kiev. According to a U.S. official, these mines are expected to be deployed on Ukrainian territory to target Russian ground troops while avoiding civilian populated areas. This marks a new addition to the military aid package, which has previously included anti-tank mines. The U.S. emphasized that these mines are non-persistent, designed to become inert after a preset time, making them safer compared to Russia's versions. Ukrainian and Russian officials have yet to comment on the development. The decision, first reported by the Washington Post, highlights Washington's continued effort to boost Ukraine's defense capabilities. Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev has shut down, citing a specific threat of a major air attack. Americans in Ukraine are being told to stay ready to take cover. And this comes after Ukraine used U.S.-made ATACMS missiles to hit Russian territory, a move recently approved by the outgoing Biden administration as the war hits its 1,000th day. Russia's latest missile barrage over the weekend killed 7 people and knocked out parts of Ukraine's power grid, sparking fears of more strikes. Ukrainian officials warned Russia has been stockpiling weapons for further attacks. Meanwhile, Moscow has repeatedly warned the West that supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles could escalate the conflict further. As the war between Ukraine and Russia entered its 1,000th day, Kiev took advantage of a newly granted permission from the U.S. in a major escalation of the conflict. Ukraine used American ATACMS missiles to strike Russian territory. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
Russia says its forces shot down 5 of the 6 missiles fired at a military facility. Debris from one hit the facility, causing a fire that was swiftly put out. There are no reports of casualties or damage. At the United Nations, Ukrainian Ambassador Sergei Kyslytsya reflected on the 1,000-day milestone.
1,000 days of war is a tragic reminder of the need to remain resolute in ensuring the international law prevails, not just in Ukraine, but wherever it is challenged.
Kyslytsya adds that Ukraine has to keep the pressure on Russia to bring the war to an end.
We have to make the Russians sit down at the table of negotiations, and the only way to do it is by strength. The strength is the answer.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a new nuclear doctrine that appears to be a warning to Washington. It lowers the threshold under which Russia might use atomic weapons to include responding to attacks that threaten its territorial integrity.
Aggression against the Russian Federation by any non-nuclear weapon state with the participation or support of a nuclear weapon state is considered a joint attack. Russia has always viewed nuclear weapons as a means of deterrence, the use of which is an extreme and forced measure. Russia has always taken a responsible position and made the necessary efforts to reduce the nuclear threat and prevent the exacerbation of international relations.
Ukraine's Kyslytsya dismisses that threat.
I don't believe that anyone in the Russian leadership is brave enough to commit a suicide. People are very weak in Russia.
Meanwhile, there are more calls to increase military aid to Ukraine. At the European Union's Foreign Affairs Council, NATO chief Mark Rutte says support for Ukraine has to be beefed up.
That means more aid, more money, and we have to make available to them, particularly now that the North Koreans have come on board. And we know that China is helping Russia with the war effort. We know that Iran is supporting Russia with the war effort.
The war has also been on the minds of the foreign ministers of Poland, France, Germany, and Italy. They met Tuesday in Warsaw. The Ukraine war topped the agenda, along with discussions on the incoming Trump administration and the Middle East. And one of NATO's newest members, Sweden, has become more proactive on the issue of war. The Swedish Civil Contingency Agency is distributing a brochure telling people how to prepare for a worst-case war scenario. Agency spokesman Svante Werger says they want to make sure the country's citizens are ready if the worst should happen.
We think that's important to also include the possibility for nuclear war and for the use of nuclear bombs, not least since Russia talks about it and sometimes almost threatens to use nuclear bombs. It's important to also include that perspective and increase the mental awareness in people, and also to give some advice on how you can protect yourself in that case also.
The 30-page brochure tells people how to find bomb shelters, stop severe bleeding, how to deal with pets, and also how to deal with anxiety and how to talk to children about war. As well, it includes information on what to do in the case of a nuclear bomb being used. Whether this information will provide any comfort to Swedes or whether it will create more anxiety remains to be seen. One thing for sure, it is yet another sign of the uncertainty the globe is facing. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
President-elect Donald Trump and tech mogul Elon Musk showcased their deepening partnership today during a trip to Texas. They attended SpaceX test flight of its Starship rocket, the largest vessel in Musk's fleet aimed at advancing space exploration. While the tests focused on pushing technological boundaries, the event also highlighted Musk's growing influence on Trump's upcoming administration. Elon Musk has become a key advisor to Trump since the election, frequently seen at Mar-a-Lago and now shaping major federal appointments. Dr. Mehmet Oz, best known as a celebrity physician, has been tapped to oversee the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, responsible for managing health care for over 160 million Americans. The appointment reflects Trump's focus on high-profile figures to lead critical agencies. Linda McMahon, the former CEO of WWE, is poised to take over the Department of Education. Her nomination is sparking debate given her lack of experience in education policy. Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, has been selected to head the Department of Commerce. With his financial acumen, Lutnick is expected to spearhead Trump's push for new tariffs and trade policies. Musk personally endorsed Lutnick for the role, citing his ability to navigate complex economic landscapes. Trump's choice of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General and Pete Hegseth as Defense Secretary has stirred controversy. Gaetz, a former congressman with a history of allegations involving sexual misconduct, faces an uphill battle for confirmation. Senators from both parties are raising concerns, with some calling for the release of an ethics report detailing investigations into his behavior.
And in this instance, the confirmation process, Senate has a constitutional requirement for advice and consent. And I think it's important for them to have all critical information that they need to make an intelligent decision on that.
You might support sharing this with the Senate.
I certainly don't. I certainly understand why they want the information. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about the contents of the report because the way the rules work, of course, the Speaker of the House can't put a thumb on the scale or be involved in an ethics committee report. What I do know is that the comments about this being, there's a precedent for releasing reports is not exactly accurate. Yeah, there are 2 breaches of the tradition in the past under very extraordinary circumstances. I don't think this meets that criteria. But with regard to the report, there's a very important reason for the tradition and the rule that we have almost always followed, and that is that we don't issue investigations and ethics reports on people who are not members of Congress. I'm afraid that that would open a Pandora's box because the jurisdiction of the Ethics Committee is limited to those who are serving in the institution. That's its very purpose, and I think this would be a breach of protocol that could be dangerous for us going forward in the future.
Vice President-elect J.D. Vance is working to sway skeptical senators, emphasizing Gates' alignment with Trump's vision for justice reform. Gates, in turn, has been personally reaching out to lawmakers, attempting to rebuild trust and secure their votes. Hegseth, a former military officer and TV commentator, also faces challenges in convincing the Senate of his qualifications to lead the Department of Defense.
We've got the easiest vetting process in the world right now, which is it consists of one question. Will you be absolutely loyal to Donald Trump and do whatever he asks you to do when he asks you to do it? And if the answer is yes, you're vetted.
President Trump likely sees him as a disruptor in an organization that he regards as staid and unresponsive. Hegseth's challenge will be that he has not been in government, therefore does not have a sense of the levers of power. And if the reports are true about some sort of general officer board, some sort of general officer review, he'll be coming into a hostile organization, an organization that is very defensive, and this double challenge will be particularly difficult.
Beyond his advisory role, Musk stands to gain significantly from Trump's presidency. SpaceX and Tesla already hold over $133 billion in government contracts. Musk has been vocal about federal regulations that he says stifle innovation, and he will now chair a newly formed task force aimed at reducing bureaucratic hurdles across industries.
We have a man who has a seriously high IQ. You know, I'm a person that believes in high IQs, and his is about as high as they get. He launched a rocket 3 weeks ago, and then he went to Pennsylvania to campaign because he considered this more important than launching rockets that cost billions of dollars. Elon Musk. Elon, what a job.
The trip to Texas wasn't just about rockets. It served as a reminder of Musk's intricate relationship with the federal government. Commercial launches like today's are regulated by federal agencies, and Musk has often criticized the pace of those regulations. Now, with Trump's ear in a prominent advisory role, Musk is uniquely positioned to reshape the policies governing his industries. Looking ahead, as Trump's administration takes shape, the alliance between the president and Musk is emerging as a defining element. Musk's businesses and Trump's deregulation agenda are set to intersect in ways that could alter the landscape of space exploration, clean energy, and federal governance. With the Senate gearing up for contentious confirmation battles, the partnership between these two influential figures will likely continue to dominate the headlines as they navigate political challenges and pursue their shared vision for the future. And today, Bitcoin rose to a record high above $94,000 as a report that Donald Trump's social media company was in talks to buy crypto trading firm added to hopes of a cryptocurrency-friendly regime under the incoming Trump administration. Bitcoin, the world's biggest and best-known cryptocurrency, has more than doubled this year. It was last at $92,104 in Asian hours on Wednesday, having touched a record high of $94,078 just toward the end of the previous session. The Financial Times, citing two people with knowledge, said Trump Media and Technology Group, which operates Truth Social, is close to an all-stock acquisition of Bakkt, which is backed by NYSE owner Intercontinental AL exchange or AL exchange. Cryptocurrencies have soared since the November 5 U.S. election as traders bet President-elect Trump's promised support for digital assets would lead to a less restrictive regulatory regime and inject some life back into Bitcoin after a listless few months. The growing excitement has taken the global cryptocurrency market's value above $3 trillion to a record high based on analytics and data aggregator CoinGecko. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Hello people! Again, a new episode of Corina Interviews. Sabi nga nila, like father and mother, like daughter. Pinatunayan niya ng only girl ng mag-asawang Cynthia plus Manny Villar equals Camille Villar. Kilalanin pa natin si Camille Villar ng husto. Ang dami niyong madidiskubre. Hinabol ng nanay para kastiguhin. Mahilig sa fishball at sumasakay ng tricycle. Pwede sanang hayahay na lang sa buhay pero gustong sumakit ang ulo sa public service. Bakit? Dito lang malalaman ang mga kasagutan sa Corina Interviews this coming Sunday 6 p.m. sa NET25.
Sa NET25.
After years of negotiations, Mary Jane Veloso, a Filipina who narrowly escaped execution in Indonesia on drug trafficking charges, is set to return home. President Marcos Jr. confirmed the development today, marking a significant milestone in the 13-year ordeal.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. confirmed this morning that Mary Jane Veloso is coming home. Mary Jane Veloso has been imprisoned in Indonesia since 2010 for drug trafficking. In his statement, President Marcos said that this agreement was reached after over a decade of diplomacy and consultations with the Indonesian government. He thanked President Prabowo Subianto and the Indonesian government for this goodwill.
His Excellency Yusril Mahendra, who had mentioned that Indonesia is formulating a policy of transfer of foreign persons to their host countries. In fact, Philippines is not the only country which has been requesting this. So because of that, our Department of Justice, and we are represented here by the DOJ, sent the formal request, and what we just need now is to sit down with Indonesia as to the details. Our friends in Indonesia have always been strong supporters of the Philippines. The very fact that Ms. Veloso is still alive this very day is a tribute to the work that our government has been doing for over a decade, but also to the warm ties of friendship and cooperation between the Philippines and Indonesia, and we are very grateful for this.
Permintaan dari pemerintah Filipina kepada pemerintah Republik Indonesia untuk memberikan pengampunan lagi-lagi ditolak oleh Presiden kita, dan akhirnya kita merumuskan satu kebijakan baru yang belum pernah kita lakukan sebelumnya, bukan memberikan pengampunan atau bukan memberikan pembebasan kepada narapidana warga negara asing yang dijatuhi hukuman oleh pengadilan kita, tapi kita melakukan satu kebijakan yang dalam istilah hukum pidana disebut dengan pemindahan narapidana atau bahasa Inggrisnya transfers of prisoners.
Thousands of Filipinos migrated to Japan to look for greener pastures. One of the challenges for Filipinos working in Japan is the longing they feel from leaving their families behind. And to uplift our fellow Filipinos in a foreign country, members of the Church of Christ conducted simultaneous efforts to provide them with their needs through the Care for Humanity program. Ronessa Saladaga, the pair files this story.
A wonderful day to kick things off as the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ members here in Tokyo, Japan, brimming with joy, are zealously gathered once again to facilitate a Care for Humanity event as they continue to fulfill their relentless commitment and carries on with this humanitarian effort. The said event was held simultaneously in various venues like the Kawasaki International Center, Shobu Cultural Center, Omiyazaki Community Hall, and Shiba Civic Hall, which mainly benefited thousands of unsung heroes or our precious overseas Filipino workers. Some of the beneficiaries who attended were under the Technical Intern Training Program or TITP launched by the Japan government. Worn out by the life in the Philippines, pursuing a better opportunity, or cliche as it may sound, looking for greener pasture was now inevitable for him. Thus goes the story of one of the beneficiaries of the Care for Humanity program.
Bali, ang trabaho ko dito sa Japan ay isang construction worker. Bali, isang taon kalahati na po ako dito nagtatrabaho sa Japan. Kalaban po talaga dito yung homesick. Wala po yung mga kasama ko. Kinakausap ko po yung pamilya ko, tinatawagan ko. Pamilya ko po ay nasa Pilipinas, sa Negros po.
The program jump-started by the brethren genuinely and warmly welcoming the guests with arms wide open, wherein they receive inspirational words based on the Bible from Brother Amante P. Rodriguez.
Pakahirap po malayo sa pamilya. Gusto ko po habang buhay ko po silang inaalagaan. Kaso dahil sa hirap ng buhay po dun sa Pilipinas, kahit magdubling kayod pa po ako, hindi po sapat yung kinikita natin doon. Kaya kailangan po natin makipagsapalaran sa abroad. Yung hirap po talaga, yung homesick. Kasi hindi mo pwedeng sabihin sa pamilya mo doon sa Pinas yung pinagdadaraanan mo dito kasi baka sila lalo silang mapanghinaan din ng loob.
Japan is situated in a rapidly changing world and known as one of the highly industrialized country is of no exemption, as they also grapples with issues like hikikomori or social isolation, homelessness, and food insecurity, brought about by economic challenges, rising living costs, and a growing number of single-person households, particularly among the elderly. Food banks, community programs, and the Care for Humanity project of the Church of Christ play a pivotal role in addressing these issues and is striving to help those in need by offering support in providing relief goods and essential items for their urgent needs. This kind of activity emphasizes the Church's commitment in helping people and communities all over the world. As the event carried on, church volunteers handed the relief goods filled with basic essentials as a testament of their unwavering care for humanity.
Sa tagapamahala pong pangkalatan ng Iglesia ni Cristo na si kapatid na Eduardo B. Manalo, maraming salamat. Nilingap mo po kami dito sa Japan. Umabot po yung Iglesia ni Cristo dito. Yung Iglesia po walang sawa sa pagtulong sa mga nangangailangan.
Before the event wrapped up, the brethren served packed meals and refreshments to all attendees, fostering a sense of belonging and a spirit of camaraderie. As we drew the activity to an end, this event emanates a strong sense of fulfillment to the Church of Christ members as it fosters empathy, kindness, and service to their fellow men.
And from the whole team of Madanang Agila, this is Alma Angeles reminding you that kindness knows no boundaries. Thank you for keeping me company tonight, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Good night.